Yo, what's the deal with y'all boys, man? It's your boy Panic here. So today's video is actually one I really wanted to make for a minute now. I just ended up forgetting about it. So with all that being said, the topic of this video is actually the Gold Ranger. So before I end up repeating myself again, let's just get into the video. So we begin with my GOAT returning back to the city, but no one knows yet. And while Antonio is getting his feet wet in the city, the Rangers are on this storyline where Nylock has the power to spy on them anywhere. And the Nylock is using this ability in order to learn this seal that would pretty much seal away all the Nylocks forever. And it's so bad that it got my GOAT from the original 5 tweaking. And after rightfully overreacting, that led to Jayden splashing his face with some water. And little do we know that's when he figures out how to beat the Nylock. And it may seem like I'm moving quick, but there's a reason for that, so just stay tuned. And I forgot to bring this up, but earlier in the episode, the Rangers received an arrow. And I only bring this up because they end up seeing Antonio and he's handing out some flyers. And obviously Emily looks at this shit one time and somehow instantly recognizes the handwriting from the arrow. And after the Rangers stop and compare the flyer to the arrow, they find them to be similar enough to the point where they end up stopping Antonio and confronting him. And after getting presented the evidence like a Minecraft YouTuber after he blows up, Antonio makes a mad dash away from the Ranger. And any and every time I try to give these grace without Jayden, it just blows up in my face. You're telling me 4 Rangers got put on their ass by ice? They just be letting anybody become Rangers nowadays, bro. This shit is terrible. But after cutting to the Nylock real quick, you see him spying in on the Red Ranger before he uses some symbol power to block his view, making Akaru tell the Nylock to get off ass and go step in the field. So after throwing a hissy fit, our main villain is finally gonna come to the real world. And that genuinely made me forget that the fraudulent Rangers are genuinely chasing Antonio, while the semi-decent ones are going to go help Jayden. And finally, after the Nylock gets there to play ball, the Red Ranger sends the Lion Zord to grab the mirror while he attacks the Nylock. And after landing that attack, followed up with a tough ass dodge and combo, ends up allowing him to gain possession of the mirror and buys him enough time for the Goodwill Rangers to get there. And after going back and forth with the Nylock, explaining that his spell's one weakness was water, the Red Ranger slices the mirror and that ultimately begins the fight. And after using this flimsy ass tornado, which had the 3 Rangers in the air high as hell before ultimately being pushed 2 feet away. And while the Rangers are regrouping, discussing how weak this foe is, the show cuts back to Mike and Emma looking for Antonio, and you wouldn't believe who's calling them. It's Mia. I'm really done overreacting at fraudulent activity, especially from people who I expect it from. What the f? And as soon as we cut back to the fight, the first thing we see is the blue and pink Ranger going down like frauds, while the Red Ranger is trying to put up a fight. But after running through 2 blasts, he ends up going down. Before the Green Ranger does some pretty cool shit, and after all 5 of the Rangers regroup, they come together for a joint attack, and that shit does absolutely nothing. The Nylock catches it, throws it back at him, and then redoes it again. And this shit honestly got me watching like, they might not be fraudulent, this man just might be overpowered. But just as you think all of the Rangers are done, the Nylock starts mocking them, talking a bunch of shit, and then Antonio throws a bunch of fish hooks at him. And after he lands that attack, Jayden looks back at him, and Antonio introduces himself. And I'm gonna keep it a stack, I'm gonna cut all the bullshit. After he suits up, he begins to show us just how strong he is by demolishing all these Nylocks. And this is by far my favorite introduction by any 6th Ranger ever. And after whooping all of the Nylocks, the Red Ranger starts gassing them up to the other Rangers. But Jayden pretty much confirms that Antonio is the fastest of all of them. And after doing some glazing, some of these sneaky ass Nylocks start shooting arrows at Antonio, and he blocks all of them. And after the arrows hit the ground, Antonio starts dissing the Nylocks, and then he jumps in the battle. And after whooping some more minions, just absolutely slaughtering every minion in his way, making this one even flip. All the Rangers that were put on fraud watch gets up and starts glazing them, except for Kevin, because it's a thing where he just hates on the Gold Ranger for no reason. But after the show cuts back to the Gold Ranger, he's hitting flips all around the screen, somehow landing on the tree before taunting the Nylocks and falling. And you know it's a terrible fall when your feet is above your head. And Antonio's my GOAT and all, but as a Power Ranger, how do you manage to put yourself in this situation? But after reassuring the Goodwill Rangers that he's okay, he goes off to fight the rest of the fight. And honestly, the choreography of this fight is actually peak. Like, the fact that you got Antonio running off of the heads of Nylocks in this fight is crazy. But after standing still really quickly to make sure that the camera guy got his flicks, he has this crazy ass move where he kills the entire horde of Nylocks and then drops a bunch of totally real trees on his head. But after embarrassing himself for like the 3rd time, he begins to fight the main villain that I honestly forgot about. And they're honestly having a pretty good fight. If you compare Antonio fighting this this guy alone versus all of the Rangers fighting him together, he's having a better fight. But as soon as it looks like Antonio's losing the fight, Jayden hops in with this sneak attack, landing a well-placed shot on the Nylock, buying Antonio enough time to load up his final attack. And this is definitely one of my favorite super attacks in the show, if not my favorite. And after cutting up the Nylock into little bits and pieces, this is probably where I would end the episode because I really don't like Zord fighting. The massive fighting always just looked clunky to me. But for those who care, I'm gonna explain it really quickly. But after the Nylock grows in size, the Goodwill Rangers suit up and begin to fight him. And after a while, they realize they're just not like that. So Antonio pulls out his Zord and joins in on the fight. And then they pretty much just jump him. And after whooping that Nylock as a team, they end up meeting down below on the grass. And they start telling Antonio about how he can become a full-time Ranger. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Thank you if you made it this far. I got a skate video coming out soon, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you for all the support you guys have been giving me recently. It all means a lot. And with that being said, I'm out. Peace.
Get right, get money, for life. If you talk down, hear me the sight. She so bad.